Erwin Smith died for absolutely nothing. The moment the serum was injected into Armin Arlert's veins, Paradis Island's fate was sealed in blood and undeniable failure. Fans worship this blonde pacifist as the ultimate beacon of hope, a messiah who supposedly saved humanity through the power of dialogue. Stop lying to yourself. That naive idealism wasn't salvation, it was a pathetic delusion. The ocean didn't grant Armin freedom, it drowned his resolve, leaving behind an absolute fraud. Levi's choice to save Armin over the commander was the single most catastrophic strategic blunder in the entire franchise. Let's be completely real here. Post-timeskip Armin is a hollow shell dragging around the dead weight of survivor's guilt. He wasn't equipped to lead, he lacked the sheer ruthlessness required to navigate a world that wanted his race exterminated, and he was far too weak to stop Eren Yeager until the world was already crushed into red paste. The brilliant tactician from Season 1 was replaced by a weeping liability who desperately hugged a philosophy of peace while standing on an active landmine. He inherited the Colossal Titan, the god of destruction, but spent 4 years terrified of his own shadow. Here's the brutal kicker nobody wants to admit. Armin's obsession with negotiation in Season 4 wasn't born from high moral ground. It was pure, unadulterated cowardice disguised as diplomacy. This is the psychology of extreme imposter syndrome eating a man alive. He looked at Erwin's ghost, realized he could never fill those blood-soaked boots, and subconsciously chose to freeze. Paradis Island was surrounded by enemies who actively fed Eldian children to dogs, who cheered for their genocide, and who declared a global war of annihilation against them. And what was Armin's master plan? Let's talk it out. Let's sit at a table with fascists who see us as literal devils and politely ask them to stop being racist. It is an insulting level of naivete. My take is simple. Armin suffered from a crippling fear of getting his hands dirty when it actually mattered. The narrative desperately tries to frame his pacifism as strength, but real strength in Attack on Titan is the willingness to become a monster for the survival of your people. Erwin understood this. Eren understood this. Armin completely rejected it, fundamentally crippling the Paradis military command. Instead of using the 4-year time skip to develop a ruthless deterrent or an ironclad political strategy, Armin spent his days talking to a crystallized Annie. He abandoned his role as the tactical mastermind of the Survey Corps to play the role of a tragic romantic while his best friend was driven insane by the memories of the future. When the raid on Liberio happened, Armin nuked the port, yes, but look at his face. Look at his immediate reaction. He steps out of his Titan, looks at the carnage, and instantly regrets doing what was necessary to extract Eren and cripple the Marleyan fleet. He possessed the ultimate weapon of mass destruction. He held the very power that breached Wall Maria and started this whole nightmare. But instead of wielding that terror to force the world into submission, he treated it like a curse. A weapon is only as effective as the will of the person pulling the trigger. Armin had no will. He became a reactionary pawn. Eren had to go rogue, orchestrate a global massacre, and manipulate every single variable because he knew Armin would never have the stomach to ensure Paradis survived. Armin's moral high ground was actually a psychological refusal to accept the burden of command. He wanted the prestige of being the good guy while Eren did the dirty work. Let's rip open the philosophical hypocrisy of Armin Arlert. This is peak fiction betrayal right here. Cast your mind back to the golden era of Season 1. Armin looked straight at the camera, essentially, and delivered one of the most ruthless, brilliant lines in anime history. Someone who cannot sacrifice everything, cannot change anything. To defeat a monster, you have to be willing to throw aside your humanity. That was the Armin who manipulated Bertold by lying about Annie's torture. That was the Armin who pulled the trigger to save Jean. That was the boy who understood the cruel calculus of the world Isayama created. He recognized that morality is a luxury paid for by the blood of the decisive. So what happened? How do we go from a Machiavellian prodigy to a pacifist apologist? The betrayal of his own philosophy is his ultimate undoing. Once he saw the ocean, the narrative shifted. He achieved his childhood dream, and in doing so, his hunger died. He became complacent. When the truth of the world beyond the walls was revealed, instead of throwing aside his humanity to protect his people, he clung to it like a life raft in a hurricane. He desperately tried to hold on to the illusion of moral purity. He refused to sacrifice his conscience, and as a direct result, he changed absolutely nothing. He let Hanj die. He let the Yeagerists seize power. He let Aaron shoulder the unimaginable psychological torment of the rumbling alone. Armin's ideological split is a death sentence for his leadership. You cannot preach peace to a firing squad. You cannot philosophize with an enemy who views your very biology as an abominable threat. He convinced himself that understanding the enemy would stop the war, but understanding Marley only confirmed that they were systematically brainwashed to hate Paradis forever. His failure to adapt his Season 1 philosophy to the Season 4 reality is the core tragedy of his character. He was too smart to believe that talking would work, yet too cowardly to accept the alternative. So he chose cognitive dissonance. He lived in a state of perpetual denial, forcing everyone around him to pay the price for his inaction. His philosophical collapse proves that inheriting a Titan does not give you a spine, it just magnifies your flaws on a colossal scale. He was paralyzed by the very intellect that used to be his greatest weapon, overthinking every scenario until the only option left was apocalypse. Now, I can already hear the aggressive typing in the comments. I can hear the defensive cries of the fandom echoing right now. But Titan, Armin literally convinced Zeke in the paths. He stepped up. He became the hero of the finale and formed the Allied Peace Ambassadors. He bought them time. Let's crush that laughable defense right now. Did he save the world? He saved 20% of it. He stood on the corpses of 80% of humanity and had the audacity to play the diplomat. And let us look at the glorious, undeniable aftermath of Armin's so-called peace. Look at the extra pages of the manga. Look at the ending credits of the anime. What happens to Paradis? It gets carpet-bombed into oblivion. The island is entirely eradicated by the outside world. Armin's monumental peace talks were nothing more than a pathetic temporary band-aid on a severed artery. He didn't secure survival, he just delayed the inevitable execution. The world rebuilt, remembered exactly what the Eldians did, and wiped them off the map. Armin's legacy isn't lasting peace. His legacy is the total annihilation of his own homeland because he refused to finish the job Aaron started. He traded the permanent survival of his bloodline for a fleeting few decades of false tranquility. That is not a victory. That is the definition of a catastrophic failure wrapped up in a ribbon of false heroism. Armin Arlert is a deeply tragic character. He was a boy handed the immense, heavy mantle of a literal devil, but he desperately wanted to remain a completely innocent angel. In this unforgiving universe, angels do not survive, they just get their people brutally killed. Go ahead, tell me I'm wrong in the comments down below.